Hey yo guys, I'm back here to give you my thoughts on last night's HBO Championship boxing. Gotta say, overall, I thought the show was, it wasn't that good overall. I would say, to give a positive spin on it, the fight between Bad Chad Dawson and the Magic Man Antonio Tarver was better than I thought it would be. Not by much, but still it was better than I thought it would be compared to, their first match, which, it was a rematch a lot of people didn't want to see. Tarver pulled the rematch clause, which, he has the right to do, but still no one really wanted to see it. Thankfully, the rematch is over, but I guess a positive that can come out of it is maybe Tarver can still go. I mean, he seemed like he really wanted to win. He wasn't the aggressor in the fight. It's just that, the punches that were connecting were more so in the Dawson direction. So that's where, I really looked at it. I mean, Dawson brought his game. In the early portions of the round, he really brought it. But, Tarver came out and proved that he may still have something in it. Like I said, he had some of maybe the more effective punching, like I said, went to Dawson. But, Tarver had his own big punches that, he definitely did win at least 3 rounds on my card. That's how I went with it. Dawson gets the victory. So he wants to know where he can go from here. It wasn't a great performance that, makes, big name fighters like, a Calzaghe to come out of retirement, have a fight with you. But, I think, Dawson's signed a deal to have 2 fights on HBO. This is the first one now. It's a rematch that is unfortunate that had to happen there. I think he would have liked to have bigger fights on the HBO network, and who can blame him? So that's where I think things are gonna. He's gonna have to, he's looking for a good fight. I don't know who's at him. It definitely, like I said, it's not gonna be someone you're really looking forward to. Like, it's gonna be someone. It's not gonna be a big name, but it's probably gonna be a decent name. Someone that Dawson can really show his true skills, because I believe Dawson's a really talented fighter. When you look at the first fight there with Tarver, his hand speed was really good, especially for a guy at 175. And, that's to me why he won the fight. Put out more punches and, had better hand speed. He didn't so much in this fight, but, the punches that he threw were really good connecting. So that's why I went with him there. And he's just looking for that another good name fighter. He's a really talented guy, but, like the expression goes, styles make fights. These guys' styles didn't mesh up all that well. Dawson gets the victory. Anyways, and also, I mean, if you tuned in HBO, the first fight you saw, which was the replay of the Manny Pacquiao versus Ricky Hatton fight, you'd have probably been, completely disappointed with the live fight you got there. I mean, the crowd didn't really... That place didn't look that packed for boxing. It just felt like... I mean, there's no way Dawson and Tarver could have matched what happened last weekend. I mean, that's just demanding way too much from them. I was not even demanding it. I was just expecting something decent, and I got that, so I was happy with that. But it just didn't seem like a stacked place, and no one was really that interested. But whatever, it's another fight out the way, and HBO has a lot of more interesting fights that are coming up down the line. Of course, we got Mayweather Marquez. Hay versus Klitschko is one that really brings, a scratch to my boxing itch. We got, Juan Urango versus Andre Berto, who a man at the, Berto had probably a fight of the year up until Marquez Diaz, with Luis Collazo back in, I believe, February, maybe late January, but I believe it was February, so that was, to me, the best fight of the year up until, the great Marquez versus Diaz fight has surpassed that one now. So, yeah, I mean, they have that fight as well. They have, a rematch between Rocky Juarez and Chris John. That was also on the exact same card as the Diaz-Marquez fight, so that was a really good fight. I mean, John was actually dictating the pace there, and, Juarez came on strong. Now, they called it a draw, and I still dispute that. That was not a draw. Chris John won the bout, to me, on points. He retained his championship. They shouldn't really have to have a rematch, but because it was an exciting fight, I'm really not going to complain too much. But anyways, that's it for the boxing. There's some other stuff I wanted to make mention about, some of the news items over the past few weeks or so. The first being, the WWE, to do some pro wrestling news. I haven't really touched on pro wrestling that much as of late, but anyways, the WWE had their shareholder conference call a week or so ago. This one was interesting because it was done with Vince McMahon, and Vince normally doesn't do this. It's normally Linda who's in charge of it, so overall I thought it was a interesting conference call. They hit on some pretty interesting issues, that they're, trying to obviously get away from their past and try and make their, pro wrestling important and, not dirty. They have empowered a lot of women into important roles. They have one of their key directors is Michelle Wilson, who used to work with the APT tennis tour, who, did a real good job of branding that, making tennis seem super important. So, she's going to be there to help, make wrestling seem, as dirty. So that's something that's good. I think one of the big things that happened was Vince said in the conference call that they got a sponsorship deal with Pepsi. Now, to me, this is a huge thing because we all know Pepsi is one of the bigger sponsoring corporations of the world. I mean, I know they got a big sponsorship deal. PepsiCo as a whole have a big sponsorship deal with the NFL. So, that will make WWE feel proud. Plus, I mean, this is like the biggest sponsor they've ever got, to be honest with you. So, I mean, that right there is a great way. And plus, you can cross-promotion your brand with that. You can put, your wrestlers on some cans of Pepsi. They get to be, you could be in commercials, or, and plus for me, for one guy, I mean, like CM Punk, this would be, a great way to market himself there, because he's got the tattoo. Yeah, the logo may have changed, but still it's the same company, so I think that's just going to be a great way that the company could completely elevate them. There was making mention of, maybe doing another reality show, and right now that's not WWE's main goal. I don't think they would want another reality show. But speaking of TV shows, Vince McMahon and the all brought up of putting out another television show. Now, at first, to me, I lost my damn mind. I thought, this is retarded. You're going to oversaturate your product and oversaturate your crew. But then I looked at it this way. What if the show, they want to have a show on Wednesday night, which, would fill up a whole weekday's worth of shows, which I thought of it, if it's a show of, like, new angles, having, another version of superstars, then no, you don't need it. But if it's a recap show, like, the Bottom Line was, or Afterburn, or basically like Livewire was, with the exception of the call-in stuff. I mean, it could be something like that. I'm just saying, if it's something like those type of shows, I have no problem with it. Put it on USA, put it on for half hour, simple way. WWE wants to have it to get you caught up on storylines. I think it would be a great way to get caught up on, the important angles of Raw, the main angle on ECW, maybe an hour, for another hour show. I'm fine with that if you do it there. And then it leads you into the next 2-day shows. And plus, with those shows, it leaves you, for SmackDown mainly, because they would probably throw this in there. With SmackDown, I think it would take less time away from a Raw rebound or something, because I think that just, it's just a waste of time. I mean, now with the amount of shows they already have, we always see a Raw rebound. Like, we know what happens. So if they have a recap show like that, I have no problem with it. And it just lets you focus on the SmackDown side of things. So that's why I get there. Superstars will probably also have recaps on there, and those matches that are just the special matches where you have like at least a match from each brand on there. So I'm fine with you doing that. One of the things they're trying to do is, someone made mention of, what's going to happen if My Network TV goes belly up, which is one of the big rumors going around. As My Network TV, I believe, told WWE, or just sent out a press release in general back in late 2008 that or maybe early 2009, but anyways, that they were, canceling all their original programming. They're only gonna like air rerun shows. I'm assuming like The Simpsons and Family Guy. But they were keeping WWE for now, but things may not be looking good for the network. So WWE's trying to move the network. Now, one of the things that, they're having right now, trying to clean up their brand. Obviously it seems to work if you got Pepsi going on there. Clean up the product and the perception of professional wrestling, and how they, not only treat, the male wrestlers or what they do on their shows, but how they treat women. They're trying to move it from, a network like Network TV, and it would probably go to WGN, but, one of the things you have to look at is when SmackDown left the CW back in, 2000, last year, when it left the CW, it was a show that was getting consistent ratings on a pretty decent network. The CW was, after UPN and the WB merged, the CW was getting consistent ratings of a 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, what have you, maybe even a 3. But no other network really wanted it because of what it was. It was professional wrestling, and they think, oh, it's just dirty, we can't have that. So that's just the one thing that really hurt the product. So now if they continue to clean up, maybe they can, they may go to WGN, which is, I think, where it would go. But hopefully maybe a bigger network would look at it. Now, I'm not saying like a Fox or NBC would be interested in it. I'm just saying a big network that, is available in more homes. So that's why I'm thinking that way. Because, WGN and My Network TV are only available in 62% of the homes in the United States. And I guess the two more interesting points is they brought up pay-per-view piracy. Now, this just goes to show how old Vince McMahon is. He was all, oh, those cable companies, they gotta, fix those black boxes and, find out the key and get it out of there. Yeah, that was 10 years ago, Vince. Really, with that piracy, it was, basically a simple way to stop it. Once you figured out the code or whatever, you just go into the black box and they just shut it off, and you probably would get charged with stealing pay-per-view. But now, in this technological age, there's a bazillion people streaming it on the internet. Now, these companies, WWE or UFC, they can stop some of them, but you can't stop all of them. There's other ways people are going to get to see the show for free, so there's no way they're going to stop it. Yeah, it really hurts your revenue on some pay-per-views, especially some that really don't feel that important, but it may beg the question, maybe you should cut some pay-per-views, so that's just my thing. I've been saying this for a while. They should really cut some of their pay-per-views. Maybe cut the 2 extra that, when you throw them 2 a month, which is just insane. You don't have that real competition you used to have with WCW, where you maybe had to run a pay-per-view once a month. Since WCW pushed it that way, your only competition, pay-per-view buy rate wise is UFC, and WWE doesn't even consider them competition because they're a sport, and WWE's a work, or it's a work, but it's choreographed or something like. I don't want to say fake because it's not, but it's just sports entertainment or whatever you want to call it. So that's just on that. And I guess the last thing was someone made mention of, could we see another pay-per-view happen in since it's been years since they've done one. The only one they've ever done was a SummerSlam 92. Now that show was a successful show in the live gate department, having, I believe, 80,000 plus fans at Wembley Stadium. The actual true, I believe the actual true highest number of people ever to view an event live. But the show didn't do that well on pay-per-view. Now, explanation, and a lot of people think this is, oh, there's a time difference, so that's going to hurt the pay-per-view. Well, one thing we have to look at, people, is back when the WrestleManias started, on the west coast of the United States, WrestleMania was on tape delay, and that really didn't hurt the pay-per-view, those buy rates. So I don't think that's a big thing at all. Plus, to me, this is my logic when you look at it. Why did the pay-per-view... Well, 1992 was an interesting time frame in the professional wrestling business with all the steroid accusations of people. So you had your biggest star, who was Hulk Hogan, who was basically built around having this all-natural physique. When he went on the Arsenio Hall show and said, yeah, I have an all-natural physique, everyone knew the man was lying. So he took a brief hiatus break, or actually I believe may have left the company at that point. So there's no Hogan on the show. The next thing we look at is... The guy that basically filled Hogan's shoes in this aspect is Ric Flair. Ric Flair, went on to win the Rumble, had that great feud with Randy Savage, and was still continuing at this point. But he wasn't booked into a match. He and Mr. Perfect at this point are doing this thing where they're supposed to play mind games with the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Savage, so they weren't booked in the match. And the match between Savage and Warrior happened, and the finish was basically a schmoz between Perfect, Savage, Piper, Warrior, and Flair. So he wasn't on the show. Now, on this time difference thing, one of the things Vince thinks is probably that, people are there's gonna be posted. Well, that show, there was no results posted. Now, then again, that was 92. Technology is definitely evolved, and, the way news travels has changed. So, my thinking as well would probably be, if you do a show like that from the UK, someone in the UK would see it, post the results, and a lot of people, would see it and probably not want to order it, so that would hurt the buy rate there. Another thing, if they do a show, they'd probably offer, like, what the UFC does, and that is, they do a show at 3 in the afternoon, which is not really a good time to throw a live pay-per-view on. People have commitments to have over the weekend, or they gotta work if, you're a young person, or they may have school stuff, or, family stuff, or work around the house. Something may interfere, so that's going to hurt the buy rate there. And plus, those results are then posted, so, you may not be felt compelled, so that's why I think they probably won't do a show, more so than a time delay difference. But anyways, that's my thoughts there. Quickly, let's try and get a couple more things in. Dana White's whole deal here recently, the big news out of the UFC is he put the Kibosh, a proposed MMA bout between Roy Jones Jr., former world championship boxer, and Anderson Silva. Now, my thoughts on this are, this has been talked about for a while. Silva wanted to box Roy Jones Jr. Now, do I think Dana was wrong in stopping that from happening? No, I think, you have a guy under your contract with you, holding one of your major championships, and, out there, it'd be probably on pay-per-view or something like that, and then you have, these boxing fans, or just, a casual fan of both sports view in, and they see, oh, look at Roy, he just absolutely decimated one of the top MMA fighters in the world. Man, doesn't MMA look like shit? So Dana was looking out there for the sport of MMA, which, a lot of people cut him up for, hurting the sport. Well, he was, to me, looking out for the sport here. But then, with this MMA bout, it's going to hurt the sport once again, because, you're going to have, it's going to do great pay-per-view stuff. It's going to do great pay-per-view buys. I mean, they were actually probably really interested in having a pro boxer do MMA. I mean, back in, I believe, 2007, they were going to have Sean Shirk versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. Now, that would have created massive interest in the sport. But we have to remember, the sport really wasn't taking... It wasn't where it was now back in 2007, last year it did 2 pay-per-views over 1 million buy rates, so it shows that the sport has grown a lot. Maybe if you had Shirk in there with Floyd, that definitely would add intrigue. But, him in there now, it's the same thing both ways, a two-way street on these two things. Silva's to go out there and do this boxing fight, all the training in the world, he's going to be nowhere near as good as Roy Jones Jr., even with his diminished skills. And all the training in the world for Roy, especially at his age, he's going to get blown out and make, boxing look bad, and it's going to make MMA look... It's going to make MMA back to the days of UFC 1, when they, wanted a true boxer, and the only boxer they ever got was, Art Jimerson. But still, get my picture here, so that's my thought. I would applaud them for, making the call that they did. Quickly, 2 more things. In New Japan Pro Wrestling, they actually made a kind of interesting move to me. They had their IWGP champion, Hiroshi Tanahashi, dropped the strap to longtime guy with this company, Manabu Nakanishi. Now, to me, this is a weird, considering Tanahashi had his best match with the championship, I believe last week Sunday or so, against Hiroki Goto, who, won the New Japan Cup to get that title shot. But anyways, I think this is a weird move. I mean, he has his best performance here. He's supposed to be the new face of a young generation, of the new generation of wrestling fans, as wrestling starting to get back into and become popular in the country of Japan. So I think this is a weird move. Now, this is my thinking on it. Maybe, I don't know, I may be weird on this, but we all know that back at Wrestle Kingdom 3, Pro Wrestling Noah's Jun Akiyama wrestled Manabu Nakanishi. Now, both these guys have history with wrestling on the Japanese Olympic amateur team back in for Barcelona, and they had a match based around that. And ever since that show, Wrestle Kingdom 3, Yun Akiyama, he won the GHC championship on the final Pro Wrestling Noah show to air live on NTV in Japan. So I think maybe New Japan thought, let's try that, maybe have a match between the two champions, because I know New Japan's willing to work with Noah, especially since lost of TV, and, you know, All Japan as well. But I think that may be, you know, I just think it's a weird move. Like, you have Tanahashi have the best performance with the belt, and you make a quick title change. Now, my thinking could be as well, Nakanishi just gonna be transitional champion and lose it to Shinsuke Nakamura, who's, you know, now turned heel and is one of the top talents they have. So I think that could have a Tanahashi Nakamura rematch, or to the rematch, which is going to be great. Because right now, if you haven't been watching New Japan, you really should, because New Japan's really turned the corner ever since the Madman and Inoki left. So please do check out some of the stuff that's going on in New Japan. And lastly, I heard some unfortunate news in the boxing world, that Andreas Nagy, I believe he was a Hungarian fighter who was training in Australia, had a license to train there, passed away from a training injury where he was training for his upcoming fight, and, you know, he butted heads with the guy, and, you know, brain swelled up and, you know, died the next day. So that was, to me, shocking. Like it makes you wonder how much these, you know, it makes you think these guys are such warriors. I mean, a fluke thing like that, I mean, it also puts in perspective how devastating a slight headbutt can be. So that's just a real unfortunate thing to me there. But yeah, rest in peace to Andres Nagy. Real shocking thing. I believe another boxer passed away over the week, but I forget his name. And but my condolences to that man's family as well. Anyway, if you want to send questions, you sure as hell can. I'll probably be doing one this week. Try to. But anyways, that's it for me. I am out. Peace.